present you the ENTSO-E RDI Monitoring Report. This is Laurent Descagnes working for the ENTSO-E Innovation team. And just one quick public announcement to all of you. In the end of the session, there will be time for some questions and answers. For this, please use the chat function of the Teams, and then we will try our best to answer your questions. For a welcome, we have here with us Uroš Sarobir, who is the Vice Chair of the RDI Committee of ENTSO-E. So, Uroš, for the welcome, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I'm just on the way from Brussels back to Ljubljana, but I found a few minutes here in the lounge to address this important event. It's a lot of things going on in Brussels these days, and everybody is looking for solutions to the challenges that we have ahead of us. And of course, the time is running out. People are getting a bit nervous. They expect from us a lot, but sometimes they do not really capture what all is being done on the field. So I think we have a celebration here around us. 120 innovation projects is not a small number. It's a huge number, which we should be proud of. And there are a lot of experience gained from that. And you know, the big questions which I'm asked all the time is, can you, the TSOs, do more? Can we get more from the policy side? Can we get more support for the vendor solutions? Can we get more support from the public side or from innovation side? And I think this is the best proof that we really do as much as we can, but we have to be abiding, you know, to the external audience. We have to still push forward. So when I look into the report from a bit more critical view, I see that a lot of flagships, which are very important for the research community of ENTSO-E. I like how the report compares the project with fulfilling the flagship targets. And if you look at this point from a bit critical point of view, you see that, yeah, many flagships are well covered. There is one in particular, I think, related to offshore grids, which might need to be filled with project even more. So this is also one of the benefits of this report. It shows us where we need to push even more than we have pushed in the past. But it's funny because I always thought that offshore has so much attention and that everything is going in the right direction. This report shows that we need to push on that side even more. The second remark I want to make will be an easy one, and then I will conclude my initial statement. In the past, I noticed there was always some kind of benchmark given also in this report. This year, you will not find anything like that, which is good because it's always some kind of common effort of all the TSOs to bring all these projects together, and I see a lot of I would say synergies and collaboration in these projects. But from ELE's point of view, of course, we were always very high on the ranking list. So let me say that I like that benchmarking, but it's better this way. So let the community rule, and let this document be our statement towards the external public. And it's very important time. It's very critical time. So I wish you to go through this workshop very intensively. I really like the program, and I hope you achieve all the targets set. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Uroš. In this webinar, we are going to talk about projects in which TSOs are involved. But of course, in the funding, it's not just the TSOs. A very important player in this field is the European Commission, especially DG Energy, who is not only providing this kind of funding, but also designing, the calls trying to see all those gaps or needs that the TSOs or the grids or other players of this industry needs. So for this reason, we have here with us George Păunescu, who is a policy officer at DG ENER. And George, over to you for your keynote speech.
Thank you, Laurent, and thanks ENTSO-E for the invitation to be here today at this interesting discussion. Before hearing all the presentations about the comprehensive RDI monitoring report, let's take a quick look at the current policy scene that Uroš mentioned and the trends. And as the key aspects, I would just state the obvious that we are undergoing a deep energy transition, and the strategy is guided by the European Green Deal that we know well. And this tackles the climate emergency and also drives a twin green and digital transition, looking at all the aspects of the energy trilemma, decarbonization, energy security, and competitiveness and affordability. And we saw nowadays how important all of them are and how tightly interrelated. So the Green Deal sets the scene for this energy transition. And then we have the implementing means, the Fit for 55 legal package that provides detailed implementation for reaching a 55% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 compared to 1990s. And I would say that Fit for 55 sets the pace for the implementing the energy transition. But then we hit an additional urgency. We saw big threats to the energy security of supply and important price shocks on the energy markets brought by the war started by Russia in Ukraine. And the REPowerEU plan was the Commission response to this challenge. And now we are agreeing on even more ambitious targets, for instance, on renewables, on energy efficiency, and all these have implications on the grids. So I would say that REPowerEU plan further accelerates the pace of the energy transition, which was already set through the Fit for 55 package. But let me just underline that these aspects are tightly intertwined. After more than 1 year of the war in Ukraine and the multiple packages of measures put forward by the Commission as part of the REPowerEU plan, we saw how these challenges are that we are facing and we try to address are only accelerating our energy transition, because there were voices doubting the transition and asking for looking at the security of supply and basically questioning the transition. But it's clear that these are going together and the transition moves on at a full speed, and it's actually a mutual benefit here. Because a deeper transition bringing more renewables in the system, but also, as we saw, looking at a stronger, smarter and better interconnected infrastructure that you are all contributing to, or liquid and functional energy markets like they were addressed in a current proposal to further fine-tune the energy markets. All this only increase our energy security and would make EU more resilient to these asymmetric shocks like the one brought by this Russian invasion in Ukraine. So that's in brief the policy side, and the technology aspects, which I'm sure you actually know better than me. I just wanted to mention rapidly that we need to address the increasing shares of renewables in the system, the decentralized generation based on these renewables, electrification of end uses such as mobility and heating and cooling, this leading to an integration of the energy system across multiple energy carriers. So these are fundamental trends now, developments, and for these we need digitalized and smart grids and smart energy systems and flexible systems. So looking at the innovation aspects, it's really instrumental. So for achieving all these goes in the energy transition, we need the political will and transposing policy and regulations. So we saw that this is happening. We need funding for deployments that are quick and at a large scale, but that's probably a topic for a whole different seminar and a long discussion. And of course, we need research and innovation as a key enabler for this deep transformation of the energy system, as the theme of the discussion today. And I would say that the research and innovation agenda needs to progress fast also, respond to this urgency in order to match the fast pace of deployment that we need for the energy transition. Research and innovation pilot actions and projects, they need to contribute to these developments and bring the elements of novelty in terms of new technologies, but also ways of operating the systems, new business models, etc. And for that, at the European level, we have the overall strategic coordination given by the SET plan, Strategic Energy Technology Plan, which is the cooperation framework to align the research and innovation agenda, not only at the EU level, but also at the national level. This was launched quite some years ago, and now it has been successfully working. And now it's being revised for further strengthening the participation and cooperation and optimizing the investment flows. And just to recall the SET plan, under the SET plan, we have the European Technology and Innovation Platforms, and we have the specific one called Smart Networks for Energy Transition, ETIPSNet, on looking at smart grids and storage. And that contributes strongly to advancing the SET plan and the EU research on priorities on smart grids. And you probably know that ENTSO-E is currently chairing this ETIPSNet through Mrs. Norela Constantinescu. The European Union has a long tradition in supporting innovation through Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe, and now Horizon Europe is one of the largest research programs in the world. It was mentioned before, quoted, and it has a budget of over 95 billion euros, and over 15 of them are earmarked for climate, energy, and mobility for the period 2021-2027. And looking at the report that you are debating today and discussed today, it's very good to see the progress done by the ENTSO-E and the members in implementing your RDI roadmap. Almost 120 projects that I saw are addressing over 80% of the milestones established in the plan. That's really impressive. It's quite an achievement. And I'm also glad to note that the EU funding through Horizon Europe and Horizon 2020 in particular are great contributors to these endeavors. I saw that more than 1/3 of the projects are co-funded by the EU, and I saw that EU funding is focused on large-scale projects starting with 5 million up until 20 and even over 20 million euros of size, the projects. So I just say that I know well that ENTSO-E and many TSOs are participating in these projects, and they are active also in the Commission initiative called Bridge, which is our community of best practice of projects on smart grids. And now, just to conclude, I would say that it's clear that for a successful energy transition, we need strong cooperation and coordination among many players, the key players in the EU. And that includes, of course, research and innovation area. And here we need to think also programmatically and set the research priorities, pretty much like you do in the roadmap, and then implement those actions in partnership, and then bringing projects forward that address those priorities. So before stopping, I just wanted to congratulate all the contributors to implementing their projects and contributing to this RDI plan. And I'll follow with interest the discussions and presentations of today. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, George, for this insightful thoughts. And to set the scene, so being aware of more the context of this report, Now it's time to learn a bit more about its actual content. And for this, I will give the word to Nuno Pinho da Silva, who is the convener of working group RDI planning within ENTSO-E. This working group was responsible for developing this report. So Nuno, floor is yours.
Thank you, Laurent. I want to start by thank you to Urus, to George, and to our colleagues that will present their experiences in OneNet, Interopera, and BD4Energy. Well, having said the thank you, let me start by presenting you the roadmap, which is to set the theme for our work in the monitoring report. The roadmap is the main guideline for research in development and innovation in the ENTSO-E, and it is divided in 3 clusters, 6 flagships, and more than 80 milestones. And as we have already heard, more than 80 milestones also are already addressed by at least one project only 2 years after the deployment of this roadmap. I want to talk a bit about these clusters. So cluster 1, it groups 2 flagships, and the idea is to develop innovations for breakthrough and opening new opportunities for system users. Cluster 2 is the power grid, which, as we know, is the backbone of the energy system, and even for a decarbonized or carbon neutral energy system. And this cluster objective is to provide a better usage of the current assets and new solutions at system level. And the third cluster groups 3 flagships, and it's the cyber-physical system with the objective to further develop the core of the electrical system. We see flagships, we talk about flagships. What are flagships? Flagships, we can see flagships as a call to action. These to all stakeholders, these are important projects or set of outcomes that we want to achieve as TSOs, and it can also be seen as a call to action to all stakeholders, as mobilizing challenges that we feel we need to achieve, we need to overcome in order and to resolve in order to deliver a carbon neutral power system. Next slide, please. The monitoring report is the last piece of what we call the RDI roadmap cycle, which starts with setting the scene from the roadmap with an horizon of 10 years. Then we have priority setting, which develop a couple extracts from the roadmap, some what you call priority actions with an horizon of 5 years. And then usually we have the RDI monitoring report that we are presenting today. This year, or I mean last year, we had another input from the acceleration mission paper, which was a position paper that prioritized further RDI topics in reaction to Fit for 55, and we will see that this is completely aligned not only with the Green Deal, but also with the REPower for EU. Next slide, please. In the monitoring roadmap, we studied the alignment between the R&D efforts and the ENTSO-E RDI roadmap, and we found a way to depict this alignment in a pictorial way. As you can see here, this is a perceptual map within each flagship, and I want to explain a bit this perceptual map because it will it will be a running theme over the webinar. So what we have here is the set of milestones, which are specific outcomes that we want to achieve with each flagship. And in the rectangular format, you have these outcomes that we want to achieve, and you have some round ones, which are the ones that come out from the acceleration mission paper. when we have a milestone with an outline as the one there, assessment of electrification potential, that outline means that this milestone is specifically supporting a project concept from the RDI implementation plan. And on the top right of the image, you can have an overall view, like a summary of the achievement that we assessed through this monitoring report for the entire flagship. When we classify the coverage of each of these outcomes from the projects that were surveyed in high coverage, medium coverage, and low coverage. Low coverage means that at most one project is addressing that milestone. Medium coverage, we have between 1 and 3 projects addressing that milestone, and with high coverage, we assign the high coverage when we have a milestone that is addressed by 4 or more projects. Next slide, please, Laurent. In terms of key exploitable results, I want to call the attention that we have 160 key exploitable results declared in the survey from the surveyed 170 projects, so almost 120 projects were surveyed, and public use followed by collective use were the most frequent effective use of these key exploitable results. Next slide, please. Regarding the technology readiness level of the key exploitable results, we observed the concentration between level 7 and level 9, so high TRL, and this is expected, and it is very according to the nature of the research, development, and innovation within the TSOs. And in terms of barriers, we see that the regulatory framework followed closely by market conditions were cited as the biggest barriers to the use of key exploitable results. Next slide, please, Laura. We see one thing that is important here is that TSOs do projects in partnerships. And we saw that research institutions followed by other TSOs and industry partners are the largest groups that are part of the consortium, or that are part of the projects from transmission system operators. And this tells us that the research that is done, research and innovation that is done within the TSOs, it's a hands-on research and provides a platform for knowledge transfer. As we saw that actually these projects are bridges from fundamental research within the R&D universities and institutions towards technology development from the industry partners and integration by the TSOs. Next slide, please. Just to summarize, I want to get back to the words from George about the grid in Repower EU, and what we can say right now that is that only 2 years after the roadmap, within this exercise of alignment between the R&D efforts and the roadmap strategic plans, we see a very, very good and strong alignment with the Green Deal and also with the Repower EU action plans. Next slide, please, Laurent. So having those were the key observations that I want to share with you. Now we have 5 key recommendations that are taken from this monitoring exercise. One is that direct public use should be further maintained and monitored. The other one is that we need to work on the electrification of transport needs more intensively, and also related to this and to the sector coupling that was also mentioned by George, We need to boost activities towards storage, power to X, and have a deep research on the flexibility needs and value for pan-European and value of flexibility at pan-European level. And this is being actually taking care, and there are current initiatives within the thematic working groups from the Research Development Investment Committee of ENTSO-E that are addressing these issues. And the other ones on our third recommendation also. We need to accelerate the activities to enable large-scale offshore wind into the grid, and also to develop services and processes that guarantee stability of the pan-European grid with high penetration of power electronics. And this addresses, of course, the decentralized paradigm that we are currently moving to due to the energy transition. And of course, we have two more recommendations, a bit more tactical, I would say. The milestones, we think that in order to even accelerate more the research and innovation that we feel it is needed in order to achieve a carbon neutral power system as soon as possible, the milestones of the roadmap should become part of the set of outcomes of the research topics of the Horizon Europe. And also within ENTSO-E, where we are working into that, trying to propose research topics that are aligned with the roadmap. And as the last recommendation, we need to work together with regulatory authorities to dismantle innovation barriers. And this was already something that we stated in the position paper, Innovation Uptake Through Regulation. Thank you, Laurent.
Thank you as well, Nuno. So now we presented the overview of the project, but we also wanted to deep dive into the flagships and show you what we found topic by topic. And for this, we will have some help from the development team of this monitoring report. So we have here Luca Oru from Terna and Kevin Lunge from Amprion. So in order to start, Luca, flagship 1, this is for you.
Yes, thank you, thank you, Laurent. Yes, we start with the, I can say, most high-level flagship, and so the cross-sector integration. This was mentioned also by the DG officer, and it's very important to address this flagship that is related with the system of systems paradigms, and so the integration of the different energy carriers and in the future scenarios. The milestones of this flagship is mainly related to 3 big topics. The first one is the evolution of the markets in order to enable the sector integration. The second one is the availability of enhanced planning and optimization tools to operate in an integrated system. And the last one is the governance of the integrated system itself. And so we can move to the next slides in order to understand that we identified 24 projects related with the milestones of this flagship, and we can say that the dominant color is the yellow one, and so we have medium coverage degree of 8 on 12 milestones in this flagship. Some highlights about milestones related also with the implementation report, and so the priority projects that ENTSO-E identified after the definition of the roadmap. We can note that there is one milestone, planning tools to enable sector capital investments, that result with low coverage, and so this requires some attention in order to address this topic with future projects proposal. and also other 2 milestone standards for interoperability and data exchange between sectors and optimization tools and strategies for operating the integrated energy systems have at the moment medium coverage, but it's very important to increase the number of projects about this topic. But in general, we can say that the situation of this flagship is quite good. As I said before, the medium coverage is the dominant of this flagship. I think that I can give the floor again to Nuno for comment also the second flagship.
Thank you, Luca. So we will now have here a summary of the analysis on flagship 2, develop of an ecosystem for deep electrification. And this flagship is very important to decarbonize through electrification the energy system in Europe. This flagship covers broadly 3 topics. A new comprehensive approach between TSO and DSO interface to provide grid users with best service. It also addresses when you start going to the edge of the grid, we need new scenarios and modeling techniques to evolve from the ones that we have today. And of course, we need also to develop new market concepts and ancillary services to integrate and unlock all the flexibility that we have in the grid, wherever it is. Next slide. I would say that here for highlights regarding a couple of milestones in this flagship, I would like to say that we have a mixed green-yellow map in this flagship, and this means that only after 2 years of the roadmap we are very well oriented in order to support the delivery of the Green Deal and the more recent Repower EU action plan. I want to highlight that we have a flagship that was supposed to be only reached in 2030, the efficient utilization of flexibility and demand-side response, but this is already very well covered with high coverage from the surveyed reports in surveyed projects in the 2022, and this is very aligned with the ENTSO vision for a power system for carbon neutral Europe. The milestone assessment of electrification potential, it's related to the project concept that was extracted from the roadmap, the project concept called integrating and coordinating the flexibility potential into the future energy system of systems. It's with medium range, and this because we saw it in the strategic analysis that supported the roadmap that should be addressed in the short term. This should be accounted more intensively by novel projects in the near future. Of course, the milestone, we have a red milestone that we've foreseen to be addressed in the very short term, which is the improved cost-benefit analysis considering deep electrification scenarios. And this milestone requires careful analysis in the next roadmap revision, as it is currently with low coverage degree. And now I will pass the floor to Kevin for flagship 3.
Thank you, Nuno. Hello, everyone. I'm happy to show you the results regarding flagship 3 and hence grid use and development for pan-EU market. Before we go into detail, let's speak about the general topic here. The focus of this flagship is, from my point of view, on the existing grid and optimizing it. So we have to name some keywords: flexibilization and higher utilization of the grid in the upper left part of this, and we have enabling energy platforms, for example, by ICT requirements in the middle part of this figure. And down on the below the right side, we have these grid components and asset management approaches. In other words, we ask ourselves the question here, how do we take today's grid and develop it technically to enhance grid use and enable a EU energy market? A way forward to this aim is defined by these 15 milestones that you can see here in this figure. And our observation, the monitoring of these at least nearly 120 projects shows that 52 of the surveyed projects addresses flagship 3, which are at least nearly every second one. So around 45% of the surveyed project address this flagship. Regarding the milestones we see here, we see that we have one milestone with a curved form. So this one is from the acceleration mission. The rest one is based on the roadmap. And regarding implementation plan projects, so prioritized projects, we have here eco design and lifecycle management together with these new asset management approaches, and the other one with the P6 with the SF6 free solutions. If we now deep dive more into detail on the next slide, we see here at the first place the key requirements to enhance grid use. Other 3 topics I named before: enable enhanced pan-EU power systems, develop interoperable and standardized platforms, and new approaches to grid design asset management. The key observations we can take now from the monitoring activity of these 15 milestones are, at first place, that most of the milestones, so 13 out of 15, have at least a medium coverage. We see 7 milestones with medium and 6 milestones with a high coverage, and that underlines that the current research works regarding flagship 3 are at good pace. Some highlights about the acceleration mission and implementation report milestones show that the flexibility and digital infrastructure milestone shows a high coverage. Milestone regarding new asset management approach and identification of risks associated with production outside EU, as well as the SF6 free solutions one, they are medium coverage, but nevertheless there is the milestone on eco design and lifecycle management, which results not covered, and this requires attention for future projects. As I said before, we have a second one that is not covered. It's the circular economy included in planning and asset management. It's the other milestone that leaves the space for future work. So in summary, we have a quite well covered flagship here with this flagship 3. In comparison, regarding flagship 4 on the next slide, we see a little bit different picture here. I think Uroš started with this one in his speech in the beginning. And here, yeah, the topic, the focus is I think obvious. We look at the future offshore grid and ask ourselves how to enable large-scale offshore wind into the energy grid. And in this context, there are 3 important topics: the regulatory issues, the way forward to multi-vendor, multi-terminal HVDC systems, and this whole topic around HVDC technologies and materials. And in this flagship, we see 11 surveyed projects. What I remember it correctly, if it's quite comparable to the number of projects in 5 and 6, in the flagships 5 and 6. And here we have here also one project milestone from the from the acceleration mission with this, which is this multi-vendor, multi-terminal offshore solution one. With it, from my perspective, it's quite related to the one above on the right side regarding multi-vendor, multi-terminal. So if we now again go into detail on the next slide, we see again the 3 key requirements that we need to achieve our goals. And what we can take with us regarding key observations of the 17 milestones in this flagship is that at least half of the milestones, so 9 out of 17, have a medium coverage or a high degree of coverage, which is just 1, which shows that at some points accelerating and carrying out the necessary activities is required. The milestones relevant to the implementation report and acceleration mission show a pathway to 2030 regarding the multi-terminal, multi-vendor solution. And there we see that in this topic, in this area, 6 out of 9 related milestones have at least medium coverage, with standardization of HVDC models and replicas highly covered. And the technology development takes time there. Yeah, it's the aim for 2030, but the coverage here shows important progress that we will see when Philip presents interopera in detail. To close this flagship in the field of regulation and technology and materials, there have to be further steps regarding the coverage. They are not, the half of them come with low coverage. Yeah, thanks. And now I think I give to Laurent.
Yes, thank you very much, Kevin. So flagship 6, as you mentioned already, it's quite related to flagship 5. Sorry, it's quite related to the previous flagship because this is about enabling secure operation of widespread AC and DC grids. As you can see, it had also 11 projects that address this flagship. Probably, or what we found in the monitoring report is the reason for the relatively lower number of projects in these two flagships is that, as you can see, these topics are more infrastructure heavy than the previous ones. And of course, for this matter, it's also more resource heavy, and it means that in case you want to move efficiently forward, you need bigger projects with bigger budgets. But this, of course, means a less number of projects. But as you can see on this mapping, these projects are quite well covering these milestones. What you can see here, because actually 11 of 18 are already with medium degree, which is quite a good degree of coverage. And as you can see, there is only one related to DC faults propagation assessment, which is not covered at all by projects currently. What we also need to mention here is that maybe some of you came across a previous report of ENTSO-E about stability management in power electronics dominated systems. And what we found here is that stability management is already a topic that is high on the priority list of the TSOs, and you can see that actually I think it was 3 projects already covering this field. But what in this previous report we found is that actually in this new type of grids, where DC and AC parts are interfacing, the power electronics will bring some new phenomena to stability management. And these new phenomena are rather lowly covered for now by projects. So this is still a field where some research needs to be done, and some focus needs to be put in the coming years. But overall, as you can see, this flagship is already on the right path towards the goal we set in this roadmap 2020 and 2030. And for this, for the last flagship 6, Luca, this is for you again.
Yes, Laurent, thank you again. Yes, this is the flagship, probably with the most connected to the very core business, I can say, of the transmission system operators, and so the control centers operations. And the goal is to enhance the control center operation and especially interoperability between the different systems that typically are used in the control centers, in the control center of the transmission system operators. And we can see also in this case, 3 main topics and related milestones. The first one is focused on the interoperability and with a particular attention to cybersecurity issues. The second one is about the enhancement of the control center operation and the utilization of wide area monitoring system and in particular the PMUs technology, the phasor measurement units technologies, and also artificial intelligence based decision support systems. The third one is more related to guidelines, tools, and also training of the people who work in the control centers. And so in the next slide, we can find some considerations about the coverage of the milestones. We have identified 23 projects in this flagship related with the milestones, and also in this case, the majority of the milestones of the 13 milestones have medium coverage degree. But we can see two important milestones: backup procedures for automated systems and high-speed protection and control for meshed AC/DC grids with the red color. Obviously, the second one is also related with the previous flagship 5, and so we can understand also the low degree of coverage of these milestones. Obviously, this is again a point of attention for future project proposal. On the other hand, we can see that one of the milestones identified in the acceleration mission, in particular the automated decision support system milestone, is well covered, and so this is a good point. About the other milestones related with priority projects identified in the implementation report, we can, and so in particular, cyber security for control centers and cyber secure and resilient pan-EU ICT platform, and so cyber security issues have a medium coverage. And also the standardization topic and also open source and vendor independent solutions for control centers also are addressed by some projects of the survey. Okay, I have completed the presentation of the flagships, and so we can continue with the other presentation of the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luca. We know that looking to graphs and seeing numbers and some other diagrams could be interesting, but what is more interesting to show you what is behind actually these numbers and trends. So for this reason, we selected 3 projects where TSOs are heavily involved, and these 3 projects actually covering quite well all the 6 flagships. And in the coming presentations, we are going to show you actually what these efforts of the TSOs mean specifically in these 3 projects as an experience. So first of all, here we have with us Jukka Luoma from Fingrid, who is a market innovation specialist. And Jukka, if you are here with us, please take it away.
Thank you, Laurent. Yeah, and good afternoon from my behalf. And so I'm here to present the OneNet project. So yeah, thanks. Thank you. So briefly, I'm going to give a brief overview about the whole project, and then also from our perspective, from our demonstration, what we are focusing on, and then also some insights from Fingrid's perspective. So the OneNet project, it's a large Horizon 2020 project, so more than 70 partners all around Europe, including ENTSO-E, and many TSOs and DSOs, leading IT companies, and also research institutes. And this project is building on top of the previous horizon projects like coordinate and interface. So we're focusing on the flexibility markets from different angles, and greater aim in the project is to create a standardized pan-European system approach, combining the existing and new solutions. So the focus is on the flexibility markets and combining the previous projects' learnings to bring them into reality in all around Europe. And on the next slide, a couple of more general highlights about the project. So on the right-hand side, you see the 4 different clusters. So we have these pan-European projects, but the clusters the demonstrations are focused on these more regional areas. And then on the left-hand side, you see the different building blocks. So starting with the harmonized products. So it's really important to be able to formalize the products, and in that way keep or enhance the liquidity on the market. So when we are now introducing new flexibility needs to the market, so that in many cases mean that we need to introduce new products. So then the market participants again need to decide on which markets they participate. So it's a kind of risk for the liquidity on the markets. So that's one of the key questions in the project. And also developing the market framework. So how these markets work together to enable the flexibility procurement. And we're focusing on different use cases. So based on the system operators' needs, these different market frameworks are then designed. And the last one is the OneNet architecture platform. So in the whole project, we have this kind of project-wide platform to be able to have this seamless cooperation between all the demonstrations. So not only focusing on these really local needs and local solutions, but also try to bring them together by enabling this information exchange between all the demonstrations. Good. And then on the next slide, we have overview to the northern demonstrator. So like you saw on the map, we're in the Finnish demo. We're also joined by the Baltic states. So the local flexibility markets are tested by TSO-DSO pairs in these 4 countries, so Finland, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. And our core is in solving different congestion management needs and focusing on the TSO-DSO coordination. And in order to do that, in the triangle, you can see the 3 different sites, which you can consider them as the tools, how we approach the congestion management in the coordinated manner. So first, we have the coordination platform. That's a tool for the TSOs and DSOs, how to procure the flexibility in a joint manner. And then another enabler is the flexibility register. So when we talk about congestion management, so we need more information about the resources, so where they are connected to the grid and how the TSOs and DSOs can use the same flexible resources. And then, like I mentioned, the third one is the harmonized products. So with these 4 countries, we first started to define suitable products to meet the needs of the countries, and focusing on the congestion management as I mentioned. Then we can move forward. And on this slide, you can see roughly how the products were designed. So we look at different timescales. This is important for meeting the needs of the different system operators. So we have on the long term different capacity products. So the system operators can secure the flexibility for the upcoming time periods. And then coming closer to the operational period. So we have our aim is to use existing products. So when we look at for example, the intraday time frame, we have the short-term product. So that's basically utilizing intraday energy market by introducing the locational information to that. And then on the near real-time timescale, we utilize MFRR. So that's our solution to kind of make sure that the liquidity is there, so we don't fragment the markets by introducing the tools to solve the congestion management needs. So that has been an important principle for our demonstration. And then coming to the next slide is maybe the core of our coordination platform. So we have created this kind of optimization module to help the TSOs and DSOs jointly procure the flexibility. So this optimization model, it takes in network models from TSOs and DSOs, which includes the topologies and the network constraints, and then also it receives the bits from the flexibility service providers. And then based on this information, the optimization model can choose the optimal set of bits to be procured by the system operators jointly to get the most cost-efficient solution for the challenges. And then this information is again forwarded to the market operators, which conclude the trade on the markets. And in this figure, you might notice the MARI platform. So it's mentioned here because we're, as I mentioned, the NRTP, the near real-time product, is based on the MFRR product. So we have taken into account the MARI, future MARI process, how the bits are first collected by the TSOs and then used, for example, for the congestion management, and then the bits that are not used by the congestion management needs, so they are then forward to the MARI, and again to be used for balancing. Good, and then we can move on the next slide. An example about how the optimization works. So when we have the information about the grid topologies and also what kind of flows and capacities we have in the grid, so how can we use that information? So in the first point, you can see the principle that we have the information about how different flexibility is affecting different parts of the grid. So many of you might know the flow-based grid capacity calculation method. So we utilize the same kind of model here, the power transfer distribution factors. And when this information is first calculated by the system operators and then sent to the platform, it's quite a light process to then see how the flexibility is affecting different parts of the grid. So then using this information, we can procure the most optimal set of flexibility while respecting the limits of the grids. So both the TSO and DSO grids are connected on these models. And on this figure on the right, you can think that from the purple and orange points below, you can have the DSO grids, and then on top the TSO, and then how these grids are connected that can be modeled on the platform. Yes, and then on the next slide, just an example from the Finnish case. So on the left-hand side, you can see the TSO grid. So on the blue, we have the 400 kV network, and red is the 110 kV. And then on the right-hand side, you can see the DSO network connecting to the grid. So this is the kind of model that we can send on the platform. It has the topology, the capacities of the grid, and also the forecasted flows. And based on this information, if you click once, we get the next block there. So with these models, we can set in some constraints. For example, here we have an example that the flow of this line marked on the picture is exceeded by 3 megawatts. So then this is the basis for the optimization algorithm to procure the flexibility. And then if you click once more, we get the bits that are located throughout the grid. So we have the resources that are on these nodes, and that information comes from the flexibility register. And then using this information, the optimization algorithm can pick the optimal set of bits to solve the congestion. And to clarify, so here we are using simulated grid models, but these are based on, or we can use these models to simulate our kind of real needs. So we're not sending our operational grid models to the platform. But we are kind of this kind of model from the similar situations that we are facing in our grid. Good, and then to the conclusions. So a couple of highlights or learnings from our point of view. So I mentioned about the products. So we're using existing products to enable the congestion management use in order to foster liquidity on the markets. So we introduced the locational information by linking the resource information which exists in the flexibility register to the bids on the existing markets. And then the procurement is done through the common TSO-DSO coordination platform. And then about the optimization platform. So it's working really nicely in our test cases, but if we reflect our kind of real world use, so that would require a lot of data. And if we look at every 15-minute period, so we would need data from the grid models from both TSO and DSO to be able to then utilize these models. So that's from the current standpoint, a lot of data would be needed and processing to create that data. So if we have a really complex grid and many congestions going on at the same time, so this would bring the benefits of the model. But from the current point, today the market-based congestion management can be done with more simple or very simple tools when you have more sporadic congestions not happening, too many of them at the same time. But then we have now looked into this option, how it could be solved when we have more complex situations. And the last point, really important learnings have been gained from the information management and the different roles that are presented in the model. So more information is needed to enable the congestion management use and to bring the kind of information about the location of the resources compared to the current state where we often manage only balancing, where you don't need to worry about the exact locations. And also the information is needed then to have the multiple markets. So when the same resources are used by different markets and also used by different actors. So when the DSOs also come into the play, so then we need the coordination and more information about the resources, how they're used. But when different countries have different needs and already develop different procedures, so then it requires a lot of work to find the harmonized and common processes. But I think that's worth the work to create these pan-European, more harmonized processes to utilize flexibility and then use the existing infrastructure more efficiently. Good. That's all from my side.
Thank you very much, Jukka. From the flexibility-related flagships, now we move to more the flagship 4 and flagship 5 territory. We have here Philip Lufing with us, head of offshore system design in Amprion, who is going to present us the Interopera project. So, Philip, the floor is yours.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So I'm presenting the Interopera project, which is about the enabling of interoperability of multi-vendor high voltage HVDC or in general HVDC grids. In Interopera, I'm leading work package 5. I will tell you in a bit what that work package is also all about, but I will present the general idea behind Interopera. So maybe let's start a little bit with the context, and we can move one slide further. In general, Interopera, as you already can imagine, is aligned with or inspired also by the objectives of the European Commission in terms of reducing greenhouse gas emissions, energy independence, and also especially an important part is the massive deployment of offshore wind energy into the European grid. In today's systems, we have point-to-point connections between different countries. We have then also the connections of offshore wind turbines or offshore wind power plants directly to the different to the different countries, as we can see under the second picture, or maybe a small railway hub to connect more than one wind power plant. However, this maybe also what is on the horizon, maybe before I continue here, are then also multi-terminal systems, but these are usually, let's say, in a on a limited scale, because we are here locked in a single vendor position. So only one HVDC vendor can be applied to one project, which limits the entire size and the applicability of certain projects. However, on the other side, we have a high demand for multi-terminal HVDC projects, being it, for example, the Bornholm Energy Island, the North Sea Wind Power Hub. Also in the German Grid Development Plan, you can see 2 systems, then in total 4 systems, which are offshore interconnected. We already can also see different projects in UK, and also, let's, for example, pick another one, the Princess Elizabeth Island in the US. So worldwide, we have a high demand for multi-terminal HVDC projects. However, as I said, it's not as easy to build these, because we are locked in with a single vendor, and our main the main needs here are then to, on the one hand, enable multi-vendor interoperability between different HVDC vendors, but also incorporate the wind turbine manufacturers into the entire system, because such a system needs to be approached from a holistic approach, and then ensure also a certain scalability to these systems. And overall, to sum it up, you could summarize it as the mission, more or less, to make DC as easy as AC. If we will get there, let's see, but that's the overall idea. So let's maybe look at how we can implement, or where this does all this come from. So maybe one click further, it's easier to see. Exactly. That is the flagship where we are operating in, so enabling large-scale offshore wind integration into the grid. And these are the main drivers. If we go to the next slide, we can see a little bit of the history behind that project. We started in 2020 with an EC workshop on HVDC, and there the overall problems regarding multi-terminal systems were raised, especially regarding the multi-vendor concerns. Based on this, within the TSO community, but also then relatively quickly with all the different stakeholders, we joined efforts, and together with ENTSO-E, Wind Europe and TND Europe, created a position paper on that path. So that's the position paper, the joint position paper between all three initial or ENTSO-E, TND Europe and Wind Europe, where an overall roadmap has been defined. Based on this, specific projects have been drafted. That is also what we are talking about today. The interoperability paper, then, or how it's also called, interoperability workstream, created on one hand a quick start project, which is ready for DC, which is kind of a, let's say, think tank, which was relatively quick to implement, and then the larger innovation action, EU innovation action interopera, which we kicked off January this year. So here you can see, for example, a very small picture of our kickoff. That is all the history behind interopera. Let's then move on to the next slide. So overall, the mission of interopera is to pave the way to the first real-life multi-vendor, multi-terminal HVDC projects in Europe, and to enable the deployment of the European HVDC grid for offshore wind integration. The overall project budget from the EU is 55 million, which is makes it one of the largest projects ever funded by the European Union or by the European Commission. And the overall project budget is, I guess, a little bit more in the 70 million area, because there's also quite an invest of the different partners. The duration is 4 years, what is very important here is to have a coordinated approach between TSO, wind park developers, HVDC manufacturers, and also the wind turbine manufacturers. And for also what is important to mention is that we engage with all high-level stakeholders here and parallel initiatives, but I will talk about this a little bit in the end. So maybe let's have now more look on the different work packages, which sum up quite nicely what we are doing. So on the one hand, we have the first work package, which is about developing the standardized interaction study process and interfaces. This is very technical, led by RTE, and will be done at several labs and at the RTE and the TU Delft. We have then more on a let's say on a requirement level, functional and technical integration and validations. There are also the functional requirements and also detailed requirements for the different for the interfaces between all these different grid systems will be defined. And so this is led by Tenet, the second work package, and then fourth work package 4. This is about a multi-party cooperation framework, which is also a foundation for the entire system, which is led by Ørsted. From here, let's go to the next one. Exactly all this shall lead to a physical, so a real-time demonstrator. This is also the demonstrator I just talked about at RTE and the TU Delft, where all different parties. So you can see here Siemens Gamesa and Vestas for wind turbine manufacturers. We have the HVDC manufacturers, Siemens Energy, Hitachi Energy, and GE are being there. Then we also have a vendor for so a Cybrake for HVDC circuit breakers, and all these are then brought together in one laboratory to carry out the multi-vendor integration studies and interaction studies. So based on this, one key objective is to demonstrate that it's all working together, and to show that let's say the real world that this can also be applied in real world projects. One last last but not least, we have the work package 5, which is led by Amprion, and here this is more or less wrapping up the results of the project for more procurement or project preparation and procurement. So here the different contractual bases are designed, the different let's say also template specifications which could be used by different entities will be designed. So equipping more or less everybody after the project, starting multi-vendor multi-terminal HVDC projects. And that is then, let's say, launched in 2027. So that all these preparations shall be done. We know that the project itself cannot be is not isolated, so there are initiatives around the project, and also these needs to be reflected here. If we now go to the next slide, maybe a quick view on. Oh, sorry, yeah, I almost forgot about the other work packages, which is on communication, dissemination, and exploitation by Wind Europe, and then for the overall management and coordination by our coordinator, led by our coordinator, the Supergrid Institute. As you can see, we have a broad consortium of from a lot of countries in Europe, and a lot of different stakeholders. So vendors, TSOs, or vendors from HVDC systems and wind turbines. These are all represented. Also research institutes and the University of Groningen, here to mention, these are supporting on a legal basis. Okay, from here, let's go to the next slide. And maybe to dive a little bit deeper into some objectives of the project. I will not have time here to go into detail about all of them, but to give you a little bit of deeper insights. So as you can see here, today's approach would be to have all components, as you can see on the left side, in one turnkey grid. And here we want to move more to the right side, where all different subsystems could be tendered and could be split into different lots. So this will, on the one hand, enable grid expansion and also coordination or let's say the right level for planning such complicated systems. And it will ensure compatibility of systems, for example, especially if a system is built, like a subsystem is built in one stage, another subsystem a second stage, so that you could connect them later on. And we can go to the next slide. I mentioned that before. One key objective is for sure the physical demonstration. It's a real-time demonstration, but the demonstration with real control cubicles, with real control hardware. So this is not just simulated, based on offline simulations. So all the, let's say, control and protection process, all that is included to have a proper demonstration and de-risking of the entire technology. And then last but not least, to show you a little bit of the complexity on the next slide regarding the different contracts you would have in such a system. That is just a sketch, but you might have a multi-party cooperation framework, which would, for example, ensure that also everybody has a level playground in the system, but you would have a lot of contracts between different owners, between different vendors, between then also between the owners itself. So all this needs to be orchestrized, and here we need to identify what should be, let's say, more general rules, which would be, for example, something for cooperation framework, and what is part of different contracts, and how to also split, for example, how to allocate liabilities, how to add or how to allocate risks. All that need to be also taken into consideration. I could go much more into detail about all the different sub-objectives, but there's limited time here, so maybe we come to an end, and I would finish that with the last slide. For sure, we are not alone. There have been great initiatives before us. Just to mention a few: Best Passes, Migrate, and Promotion. The Ready for DC project, as I said, like our think tank before Interopera, but there are also real-world projects which we are getting in touch with, and then all for example the different standardization bodies or SIGRA, and definitely also ENTSO-E, where we are also in close contact, so that we have all the stakeholders informed and get all the relevant, let's say, all the relevant needs into the projects. With this, I would like to close that session, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Philip, for this presentation. From large-scale infrastructure, now we move to digital technologies. We have here Mitja Antoncic from LS, who is Senior Data Analyst, and who is going to present us the third and last selected projects for today, which is BD for Energy. So, Mitja, the floor is yours.
Thank you for this introduction. We can go to the second slide. So, as you said, I'm from LS Slovene TSO, and we are involved in the BD for Energy project. The project is part of the Horizon 2020 call. It started in the beginning of the 2021, and it's about to end at the end of this year. Altogether, there are 35 partners from 11 countries, which are both EU and also non-EU, on the project. And the partners are covering basically the whole energy value chain. So one perhaps important part of the projects are also 12 large-scale pilots, within which the development solutions are to be tested later on, so prior to their publishment. The project as such is coordinated by Ingegneria Informatica from Italy. Next slide. Okay, so the vision of the BD for Energy is to enable a consumer-centric, electricity-centered energy system, which means we want to, or we will, build up a platform, actually innovative energy-tailored big data analytics toolbox. That's how we named it, and it consists of many puzzles, if I may say so. So this platform will join different actors. It will have different variety of models for analytics, and on the other side, it will also contain a marketplace. So marketplace with different data that would be available for the analysis.
So all the services, all the analytics that we are developing are going to be part of this platform. Okay, next slide. And as I've mentioned before, we have 12 different LSPs, so 12 different pilots within the project, and these are merged or differentiated into 3 different groups depending on their subject. The first group is related to the increasing the efficiency and reliability of the electricity network. That's where we are participating as the TSO. Then we have the second one related to distributed energy resources, and the third one to improving the efficiency of buildings. As the time is quite stiff, we may continue to our LSP. As I mentioned, we are leading the LSP2, which is titled Cross-Functional Integration of Grid Operation with Predictive Asset Management. Here we are partnering with also University of Ljubljana Laboratory of Energy Policy and Consensus, which is a small enterprise. And our goal here, so use case that we are gonna achieve here is the maintenance plan optimization. So we want to optimize the planning for the purpose of maintenance works. The task here is to optimize in terms of resources that are needed to develop such plans on one side, and also to optimize in terms of outage costs, so to reduce the costs for outages that are needed for maintaining our network. Okay, next slide. As I've mentioned, so University and Consensus are working on the algorithms, and us as TSO are working on the steering. So we're steering the LSP, and we are working on data. We're on data provision side. The idea here is to have a data-driven algorithm, so to provide a data-driven maintenance plan, or with other words, to use as much data as possible to get to as optimal plan as possible again. Bearing this in mind, we've searched through quite a huge amount of different databases that we own, so from real data from the field. For example, we've scanned through, or we use the work order data, which have information about the past, so past maintenance, how it was done, how often it was done. Then topological data, obviously, in order to know what is connected to what, to have the aligned assets in maintenance at the same time. Then the next group of databases is related to technical, inspection, diagnostic, and operational data, which is by us used to assess the state of the assets. We've developed some indices that are going to be presented also in the next slides. And the last one is environmental data, which actually tells us how the environment or rush environment puts additional stress to our assets. Next slide. So as you could hear, I've mentioned the word data quite a few times on the past slide, but I mean, that's why this is also part of the big data for energy project. If you click maybe once more, when we talk about the big data, so about the data, the aspect that is usually forgotten is the bad data. So this is where we started. That's where we start all of our projects when we as analysts do our analysis. And in this case, we found some duplicates, some missing values, and even some inconsistencies in terms of asset IDs in different databases. So these are improved, corrected, and in this manner, we try to automate this process as much as possible. And on the other hand, we also change the existing procedures in order for these flaws not to happen again in the future. Okay, next slide. Why is this important? So why is it important to have proper data? Obviously, because we want to have a proper result. So if you have, if your data is okay, then the results are better. So here are some of the developed indices, let's say, that tell us something about the state of our assets. One of them is Transformer Health Index. That's the one that we are developing, constantly developing over the last few years, and it's also one of the inputs for the algorithm. Then another one is our headline field observation index. You have it, so its trend is shown in the bottom of the slide. It's based on the findings of our engineers that make inspection on field. Some are made manually, some are made with drones already. Then the third one is asset utilization index that was developed purely in the Big Data for Next Generation project and tells when the assets are more or less loaded. So when is the good time window to shut them off. The last one that we've just tackled right now is the probability of failure, which we also understand as one of the indices used for the asset types that come in bulk numbers. For example, instrument transformers or surge arresters. So through statistical analysis, we can say something about their state or their probability of failure. And this could also be, this actually is one of the inputs for our algorithm. Okay, the last one, as I mentioned before, are environmental factors. So how the environment on different locations affects our assets. This is really not that asset related, but more geographically related. Okay, next slide. Oh, so to conclude this presentation and our task or our role in the as an LSP leader in the BD for energy, the outcomes that are already seen are obviously improved databases on our side, then improved asset indices, as I've mentioned. These are used for the maintenance processes, as I've already mentioned, and also for the comparison of different assets among themselves. So in order for us, the analyst, to know the state of assets, so the values and the mutual comparison is also debated with us and with field engineers in order for us to let's say improve the models in a manner that they show correct values. And of course, the key point here is to develop the maintenance scheduling tool, which would be data driven and used by us also beyond the project for the purpose of transition of maintenance strategy from time-based maintenance, in which we are today in most cases, towards the condition-based maintenance. So with all the inputs that I've mentioned, with perhaps some additional, we plan to make a tool for planning and on the other hand for benchmarking. So to see or to compare different maintenance scenarios among each other and also then provide some cost-benefit analysis and such. And if we go to the next slide, I believe this is the end. Yeah, I'm right. So thank you once again for giving me the opportunity to present our work.
Thank you very much, Mitja, for being here with us and presenting BD for energy. We are running a little bit behind the schedule. So I will ask at this point, Nuno, if you think that there is still time for maybe one or short questions, or is it rather the time for concluding remarks?
No, I would say that we open the floor to questions now, and we take time from the closing remarks. So the floor is open for questions. Please raise your hand or write the questions in the chat, please.
I don't see any at the moment, but maybe what I would like to give you in the chat for all of you, if you are interested more details of the RDI Monitoring Report, you can find it on the ENTSO-E website. So the link is in the chat. Feel free to take a look and see if you can find some more interesting details about this assessment.
Okay then. Okay then, I will then close the meeting, and so I want to start by saying in this close part of the meeting that we are in an energy transition, and we need to speed up. We need to accelerate. And in Europe in particular, we need to accelerate towards carbon neutral energy transition that can support our energy independence. And I would say that to achieve these high-level goals, we can summarize this in two keywords: sustainability and digitalization. And I want to leave you with two numbers from the monitoring report. These numbers relate to the business areas where most of the projects are aligned with. And we see that 41% of the projects are addressing a business area that we called operating of future grids, and 32% are addressing a business area called energy system flexibility. And these operating future grids with HVDC, DC, AC interfaces, as we saw in the Interopera project, and dealing with the energy system flexibility, as we saw in the OneNet, and also with the support of digitalization, as we saw in the example for BD4 Energy, is very important to take advantage and provide the security of supply when we need to integrate non-firm capacity from a large amount of non-firm capacity, either from offshore wind power and also from not only distributed photovoltaic, but also large PV, large photovoltaic power plants, as we have in the south of Europe and especially in Portugal. So I would say that the monitoring report allows us to conclude that I need to stress that this is 2 years over the launch of the roadmap. The works are very, very well aligned, not only with the roadmap, but also with the needs, with what we need to do in order to accelerate the energy transition and bring to Europe a carbon neutral power system with energy independence and security of supply. So it all remains for me to thank our guest speakers. Keynote speech from George. Thank you very much, and our colleagues from Fingrid, Yuka, from Empryon, Philip, and from LS Mitya. Thank you very much. Thank you for everybody that was interested in this webinar and participate in this webinar. Have a rest of the day. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye to all.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a nice day.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you and goodbye.